Solidarity comrades, it's your local neighborhood communist working out of Texas now. I have a piece of literature that I promised a few months back to read, but life happened. I read I believe the first Henderson. No, I haven't. But this is called Black and Red, The Role of Communists in the Black Liberation Movement. Now, this was a publication arranged by the Party of Communist USA, and you can find it here. And here's the table of contents. I don't know if that's going to translate over, but you can get this online. Okay. Part 1. The African Blood Brotherhood. The ABB was a left split off from the Garvey movement. Many of the early African American members of the CP came from its ranks. Harry Haywood, Black Bolsheviks, Chapter 4, an organization of revolutionaries. At the time I joined the African Blood Brotherhood, I knew little about the organization other than the fact that it was in some ways associated with the Communist Party. I do remember having read a copy or two of the Crusader before I joined the group. Some of the history of the ABB I got from Otto and other Post members. But of it, I found out much later when I met a group worked with Cyril P. Briggs, the original founder of the group. The African Blood Brotherhood was founded in New York City in 1919 by a group of black radicals under the leadership of Briggs, a West Indian, as were most of the founders. He found former editor of the Amsterdam News, a black New York newspaper. He quit in disagreement over policy with the owner, who attempted to censor his anti-war editor. Briggs' own magazine, The Crusader, was established in 1919. This brotherhood was organized around the magazine, with Briggs and its executive head presiding over the Supreme Council. The group was originally conceived as an African Blood Brotherhood for African liberation and redemption, and was later broadened for the immediate protection and ultimate liberation of Negroes everywhere. As it was a secret organization, it never sought broad membership. National headquarters were in New York. Its size never exceeded 3,000, but its influence was many times greater than this. The Crusader at one time claimed a circulation of 33,000 issues. There was also the Crusader News Service, which was distributed to 200 black newspapers. Briggs and his associate, Richard B. Moore, Grace Campbell, and others, and the Crusader were among the vanguard forces for the New Negro movement, an ideological current which reflected the new mood of militancy and social awareness of young blacks and of the post-war period. In New York, the New Negro movement also included a radical magazine, The Messenger, edited by Chandler Owen and Philip Rand, and the Emancipator, and edited by W.A. Domingo. Many of the groups were members of the Socialist Party, or close to it politically. They espoused an economic radicalism and oversimplified interpretation of Marxism, which nevertheless enabled them to see the economic and social roots of racial subjugation. Historically, theirs was the first serious attempt by blacks to adopt the Marxist worldview and the theory of class struggle to problems of black Americans. Within this broad grouping, there were differences which emerged later. Briggs was definitely a revolutionary nationalist. That is, he saw the solution of the race problem in the establishment of an independent black nation states in Africa, the Caribbean, and the United States in America. He felt this could achieve only through revolutionizing the whole country. This meant he saw revolutionary white workers as allies. These were elements of the programs which he perceived as an alternative to Garvey's plan of mass exodus. A self-governing black state on U.S. soil was a novel idea for which Briggs sent up trial balloons in the form of editorials in the Amsterdam News in 1917, of which he was the editor. Shortly after the entrance of the United States into World War I, he wrote an editorial entitled "Security of Life for Poles and Serbs. Why not for Colored Americans?" Briggs, however, had no definite idea of the location of the future colored autonomous state, suggesting at various times Washington, Oregon, Idaho, California, or Nevada. Later, after President Wilson had put forth his 14 points in January 1918, Briggs equated the plight of the blacks in the United States to the nations occupied by Germany and demanded, "With what moral authority or justice can President Wilson demand that 8 million Belgians be freed when his entire first term and to the present moment of his second term, he has not lifted a finger for justice and liberty for over 10 million colored people, a nation within a nation, a nationality oppressed and Jim Crowed, yet worthy as any other people of a square deal, or failing that a separate political existence?" He continued his theme in the Crusade. Once a year after the founding of the Brotherhood, Briggs shifted to the idea of the black state on U.S. soil to the advocacy of the black state in Africa, South America, or the Caribbean, where those blacks who wanted could migrate in this way, undoubtedly on the defensive, giving ground to the overwhelming Garvey deluge then sweeping the national black community. In 1921, Briggs was to link the struggle for equal rights of the U.S. blacks with the establishment of the state in Africa and elsewhere, just as the Negro in the United States. This is a Briggs quote. Just as the Negro in the United States can never hope to win equal rights with the white neighbor until Africa is liberated and a strong Negro state or states erected on the continent, so we can never liberate Africa and until the American section of the Negro race is made strong enough to play a part in free Africa that the Irish in America now play for free Ireland. The Brotherhood rejected Garvey's racial separatism. They knew that blacks needed allies tied to the struggle for equal rights to that of the progressive section of white labor. In the 1918-1919 elections, the Brotherhood supported the Socialist Party candidates. The Crusader and the ABP were ardent supporters of the Russian Revolution, and they saw it as an opportunity for blacks to identify with the powerful international revolutionary movement. It enabled them to overcome isolation inherent in their position as a minority people in the midst of a powerful, hostile, white oppressor nation. Thus, the Crusader called for an alliance with the Bolsheviks against race prejudice. In 1921, the magazine that made the clearest formulation linking the struggles in other oppressed nations with socialism, the surest and quickest way, then, in our opinion, is to achieve the salvation of the Negro, to combine the two most likely feasible proposition, viz. Salvation for all Negroes through the establishment of a strong, stable, independent Negro states along the lines of their own race genius in Africa and elsewhere, and the salvation for all Negroes as well as other oppressed people through the establishment of a universal socialist cooperative commonwealth. The split in the world socialist movement as a result of the First World War led to the formation of the Third Communist International, the Comintern, in 1919. This split was reflected in the New Negro movement as well. Randolph and Owens, the whole messenger crowd, remained with the Social Democrats of the Second International, the OG revisionism, who were in opposition to the Bolshevik revolutions. Members of the Crusader group, Briggs, Moore, and others, gravitated towards the Third International and eventually joined the American affiliate, the Communist Party. They were followed the next year by Otto Hall, Lovett Ford Whitman, and others. The decline of the African Blood Brotherhood in its early 20s and its eventual demise with the growing participation of its leadership in the activities of the Communist Party. By 1923 to 1924, the Brotherhood has ceased to exist in autonomous organized expression of the National Revolutionary trend. Its leading members became communist or close sympathizers, and its post served as one of the party's recruiting grounds for blacks. Now that was part one. I want to continue part two in the next section. Maybe we can do multiple parts, but this is just the first video on the black and red role of the communists in the Black Liberation Movement, put together by the Party of Communist USA. If you like it, please let me know. If you have any discussions on that first part, please comment down below, and I will continue this series moving forward. Solidarity, comrades, and I hope you have a good one.